We're looking at some really fascinating source material. It basically takes thousands of years of metaphysical practice and, well, it synthesizes it with the logic of a modern software engineer.
Exactly. It's this idea that human identity, your consciousness, can be understood as a highly complex function.
A function operating within this, vast reactive environment that we call the 3D universe.
Right. And our mission here is to really use this technical framework to understand how we can shift from just reacting to everything
Mm.
to a state of, let's say, mastery over our own internal logic. And maybe even time itself. The sources use these great metaphors like user testing versus the production model.
And they say the first step, the absolute essential first step, is learning to distinguish between your ego and your actual self.
Yes. Your ego being the legacy code and yourself being the pure function itself.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. This idea of the self as a function. I mean, how is it defined? It's not just a single line of code, is it?
No, not at all. The material says the self is the aggregated result of all the definitions built into it. They call it the long series of ifs you've collected throughout your life.
So every learned behavior, every belief is basically an if-then statement.
Precisely. If I'm faced with criticism, then my default output is to get defensive. That's a line of code.
Right.
And once you can see that yourself is defined by this script, the metaphysical goal becomes, well, really practical. It's about reaching the stage of Turiya.
Which in ancient texts is that fourth state of consciousness, right? Beyond waking dreaming.
Exactly. It's the state of the pure observer.
Mm.
And what's fascinating is that the sources claim that observing your own function becomes easy at this stage. You're no longer tangled up in all the ifs. You're just watching the code run.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting here. The sources say this observer state gives you access to the fourth dimension, to time. That sounds
Yeah,
very abstract.
it does. But think of it practically. Accessing the fourth dimension doesn't mean you're a time traveler. It means you gain a separation, a temporal buffer from what's happening right now.
You gain time before you respond.
Yes. In a high-stress moment, your old function would just execute immediately. If X happens, react with Y.
Mm-hmm.
With this 4D pause, you observed X happening, you step back, and you can intentionally choose a new output, Z, instead of defaulting to Y. You create a tiny pocket of time.
So time no longer governs your life. You govern your response within time.
That's the key.
So if the self is defined by this series of ifs, and they're always running on default, how do we improve them? How do we debug the function?
Well, life becomes one giant debugging session. Every experience is just data. When a choice you make leads to a crash, like a failed relationship or a missed opportunity, that's not a moral failure.
It's just critical data.
It's critical data telling you, hey, this particular if-then statement is not optimized. So you keep tuning your function, refining those internal rules.
And the sources make a really strong distinction between two ways of operating. The default state, the reactive, chaotic one, that's the user testing phase.
Constantly crashing, constantly patching things on the fly. And that is what we want to exit.
You're good.
The desired state is the production model. You get there by reaching what we often call a flow state. Your function is optimized, it's intentional.
And once you're on that production model, you can stay there.
The sources suggest you can. The perceived effort drops way down so it becomes sustainable. And crucially, this state grants you access to broader sources of energy that are just completely unavailable when you're stuck in that messy, volatile testing phase.
So to recap for everyone listening, we've explored identity as a function, this series of ifs. We've talked about the pause that the fourth dimension time gives you, and this shift from reactive user testing to an efficient production model.
Which leaves you with a really important question to think about. If your internal logic is quite literally a series of ifs that define your function and your entire experience.
Your whole 3D experience.
Exactly. Then what is the one essential fundamental if? That piece of legacy code you keep defaulting to, that you must tune next to finally exit that volatile testing phase and start accessing those broader energies.